These animals who have adapted to change would be the perfect metaphor for this conference if your theme was change to survive. But that's not the theme of the conference. The theme of your conference is change to win. So if we're going to use the metaphor from the Galapagos Islands, I'm not here today to encourage you to be like the animals. I'm here today to encourage you to be like the volcano, to be the disruptor, to be the brand that is changing the landscape that everybody else has to react to. But in order to do that, we need to have the right kind of mindset, and more specifically, the right kind of leadership. So as you heard, for 10 years, I was a franchisee with Edible Arrangements. For those of you who aren't familiar with the brand, Edible Arrangements makes floral arrangements out of fresh fruit. Had multiple units, and we did very well, made some money, we won some awards. It was a great experience. I had the highs of being a franchisee, but I also experienced the lows. I know what it's like to have to negotiate rent, to have to deal with the constant moving target of, minimum wage going up in California and different laws and regulations. Having, the busiest day of the year and the health department deciding Valentine's Day is the best day to show up at Edible Arrangements. I know what it's like to be desperate for employees and to have these employees just drive me crazy. I know what it's like to manage them through that and to build an all-star team. I remember days where I was making so much money, I'm like, I'm going to retire by the time I'm, 45. And I remember days when the bills would pile up so high, I had to look at them and triage them to figure which ones I was going to pay and which ones I was not. I certainly remember what it's like to navigate that very tricky relationship between franchisee and franchisor when you're not always on the same page. But since having that experience, I've been doing speaking for 25 years, but because of that experience, I've now been invited to speak to countless other franchise brands, doing what I'm doing today, getting to know them, meeting lots of franchisees. And after a while, you start to see some patterns when you look at the high-performance franchisees compared to everyone else. But we need to constantly reinvent ourselves and focus on continued improvement. Because in business, there's no stasis. You either grow or you shrink. There's nothing in between. The second law of thermodynamics is called entropy. And basically it states that all self-contained systems are becoming increasingly chaotic. Everything is deteriorating unless new energy is infused into that system. So imagine you have some great idea. Maybe it's the buttery jack, or maybe it's an awesome ad campaign with some double entendre. Or maybe it's some new leadership technique. You have some part of your business that's well-timed and it works. If you implement it, things are going to get better and better and better, as this chart suggests. But then here's what's always going to happen. There's going to be some kind of disruption in the marketplace. Your competitor, like Taco Bell, is going to come out with French fries like they just did. Or perhaps it's IHOP deciding they're going to become IHOB and offer burgers. Maybe it's going to be an increase in the minimum wage. It's going to be something circumstantial that changes the landscape. Well, suddenly that brilliant idea that used to work is no longer quite as relevant, it's not as effective. If you keep doing things the same way, well, you see how you start to decrease. They are thinking about all the things that you are. They're watching you, they're watching In-N-Out, they're watching everybody, and they're trying to stay ahead. They are obsessed with this stuff. So all the things you're talking about, whether it's, mobile app ordering, changing the architecture, the inside and outside of the restaurants, delivery, they're obsessed with this stuff. And the reason why they brought me in, though, is because culturally within the organization, they told me a lot of franchisees are resisting that change. Another big chain in my neighborhood is In-N-Out, and take a look at their star ratings. In my neighborhood, from an execution standpoint, In-N-Out Burger has really made itself unique in the marketplace. How have they done it? Well, let's see. They have the smallest menu offerings. They actually don't innovate. And let me tell you, you have to be there in the middle of the night to only have to wait 5 minutes. They have the longest lines when you're at a drive-thru. Still, they thrive. Now, I don't think they're thriving because of those things. They're thriving in spite of those things. Why? Because they have put so much of their innovation in execution, on delivering the promise. Innovation is in your blood from the very beginning. You're basically the ones who started, making drive-through work and salads and breakfasts and all these really cool things. If you can back that up with execution and keeping the promise, combining innovation with execution, you are going to win. The brand that is most able to keep the promise to customers wins. And that means giving them what they want. Yes, you need to innovate with new things. But so many companies think, well, I'm going to invent a new thing and the market and try to convince the consumer that that's what they want. That's part of it. But how about going on Yelp, reading their praise, reading their complaints, and actually responding to the thing that they're telling you that they want. They want to make sure that the French fries are there, that the food is hot, that the customer service person was friendly. Whatever they're talking about, that should be your guide in terms of how to execute. And one more thing, so I guess when I think of change to win, for some of your locations, change means doing things differently. For other of your locations, change means doing things better. Getting back to the fundamentals. Doing the basic things to keep your promise. I believe that innovation plus execution is the biggest opportunity you have. These restaurants are leaving so much money on the table. You don't necessarily have to just dig a new gold mine. Dig deeper with the gold mine you already have through proper execution.